Dark Star, the Jon Rahm rumors are not even swirling anymore. They are. It's a tornado out there in golf world, golf chatter world. That Jon Rahm is a done deal going to LIV. So we're going to start right here. Jon Rahm is going to LIV is the premise, right? And that can only take place in two worlds. There is a deal, and the deal is going to be done. There's not a deal. There is no deal. Those are the only two possibilities. So Jon goes to LIV. If that's true, is there a deal or is there not a deal? And those scenarios could not be any more different, really. And we could probably go for 4 hours on this topic. I'm going to go right to you, Dark Star, in about 5 seconds and get your reaction to the deal or no deal. I think there's a deal. We've always said that. So that's the universe that I'm going to operate in for the purpose of this show. Dark Star, where are you?
For the sake of the show, Rahm's going to LIV. He's going to make however many hundreds of millions of dollars. I think the only way he goes there has to be a deal, because the only way he's going to play in all the signature events, the players, and continue to be qualified for what he really wants to do, which is to win majors, there has to be some type of deal. There has to be an ecosystem in which LIV guys can easily get into the majors. You have to look at anything besides the OWGR as in its present format. For golf to survive, the best players have to play against each other, not just in the majors, but in some signature events, in the players. I don't have any interest in watching golf if it's Rory playing against a bunch of nobodies and Rahm playing against a bunch of nobodies.
And we're not going to say in this show that what we think, if Jon is actually going or if this is just rumor that turns out to not be true. We are going to reveal what I think and what Dark Star thinks in our podcast right after this, but not here. So this show is about, is it logical? Is it logical that he's going? Is it logical that he's not going? And if he's going, that makes this deal or no deal scenario interesting, right? So we're gonna continue on that track. So Jon goes. Let's just make that assumption, and there's a deal. Okay, then the next question is: does it matter? Is he really leaving? I'll put it that way. If there's a deal, and Jon is going to LIV or going to play golf there in the between majors, let's say, and between signature events, is he really leaving? No. He's working for Nuco. Everybody's working for Nuco. So he ain't going anywhere. He's going from the American League to the National League, or he's going from Newcastle United to Real Madrid. Everybody's playing for world soccer, or maybe even within the Premier League, however you want to look at that from a soccer point of view. True? Dark Star, are you with me? I mean, that makes sense to me that he's not really leaving if there's a deal.
That's the only logical explanation for somebody in at his stage in his career and who wants to, be a family man.
And then the next question would be, well, if he's not leaving, then why does Nuco want to drop $300 million or $200 million or $100 million, another big chunk of money, on a guy that's going to work for them anyway? To answer me that question, why do I care if my superstar plays for the American League in baseball here in the United States or the National League? I just want him in Nuco, and I already have that. All I really need to do is have Nuco. Then I have everything I want if I'm the PIF. True or not true, Dark Star?
Yeah, this is, and then when you frame it like that, it is a little bit of a struggle. My first thought there is you want to have some equality, a greater equality between the American League and the National League. You need another star over at LIV to balance things.
I'm with you. We said that on our podcast for the Inner Circle a week ago. I can argue that side, and I am going to argue both sides, as are you in this YouTube video. Okay. So he goes because PIF wants balance. Is that what we're saying? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think he does. Well, they need the balance because there has to be a reason to give guys who are just the 48 guys playing LIV. You have to give them some type of points. You have to give them a path to the majors and a path to the signature events.
All right. then let's
You have to legitimize. You have to greater legitimize the LIV product.
Is this? There's a couple points we'll make here. So we just made balance the leagues, so to speak, within NUCO. Is this PIF's answer or shoot back at the OWGR aristocracy? We have Rahm now. Now, are you going to deny us? Are you still going to keep the OWGR points away from us? Is this that? Is that why they're spending the 200 million, 100 million, 300 million, whatever? Let's say he gets the same amount as. Well, that's another good question. We're going to keep the OWGR right here in front of us. How much money would he be getting if he were going there? The same as DJ, the same as Bryson, the same as Brooks, same as not Phil. Probably Phil was the pioneer. DJ, does it match DJ? Does it match Koepka, Bryson, or Cam Smith? Or is it more?
At this stage?
Right now, yeah. He's going right now.
He's going to get more. I think he's going to get more.
More, because he's a bigger star than Koepka was when Koepka signed?
I don't think it's because he's a bigger star. It's because he is balancing the ecosystem. He's sort of the poker chip that LIV is now all in. Mm-hmm. And
it's the final blow. It's the crushing blow.
Yeah, he creates a better ecosystem. He's like, well,
good
guys,
for everybody.
Here's the other thing that Rahm does. Rahm creates a situation, in my opinion, that LIV can be a standalone golf deal if the opposite is true and there is no deal.
Okay, well, we're going to go down that other pathway where he's leaving for LIV and there is no deal. That's a whole different universe, literally.
Right.
So the question I posed to you was, is this LIV's answer to OWGR denying them a month ago in their application? Is Jon Rahm coming the answer to that? Now you can't keep the OWGR points. Yes, right. Yes, it's possible. Let's not answer it.
It's definitely one thing.
It's an interesting element. It's even if it weren't even if it weren't intended to be that way, it certainly is a wrinkle that the OWGR would have to deal with. Like, how many players can they have over there and still not get OWGR points? I mean, it starts to look even sillier than it already looks, which is just an unavoidable fact. Okay, we'll put a checkbox on that. So it could be that, and 200 million for the OWGR points. Okay, but then let's say that it is an answer to that, at least in part, if not in whole. And it wouldn't be in whole, but if that's the principal reason to do it, to spend money, I can see that as a way to spend money now. But it's NUCO is all one big universe. Again, we're going back. This side of the equation is all NUCO's happening. Well, NUCO has OWGR points. I mean, they own everything. So one of their leagues has points and one of the leagues doesn't have points. How does that work? And the PGA Tour leadership is part of the aristocracy that runs the majors. It's all one big happy family of rich guys running the show.
Right. Well, exactly. As we've discussed, the OWGR is the aristocracy, and what do people of power not want to give up is their power. So let's be honest. It's December 1st. They're supposed to have They're supposed to have a deal in 31 days. This is all wrangling and haggling, and these are these last-minute negotiations where everybody wants a little more of the pie. All right, you guys aren't going to give us world ranking points. Well, hey, you know what? We're going to throw 300 million, 600 million at Jon Rahm, and we're going to take him. And then we're going to take somebody else next. And we're going to continue to take players until we are the tour, and nobody cares about the PGA Tour.
We're parroting numbers there. The if it's happening, and I'm not going to keep saying that because the whole show is premised on the idea that it's happening or if it's possible. Fine. Whether we believe that or not, podcast. And why we would believe or not believe. But the numbers, first of all, we'll never know the numbers. That the numbers for the other guys have never been made public. Why would they be? Nobody releases that. Well, not nobody. Some sports do. I don't know why golf doesn't. Maybe they will start doing that. We know that Ronaldo got X going to the Saudi League. What's wrong with that? We know what these NFL football players are making. Fine. Just tell us. What's the big deal? Why keep it a secret? Although there are reasons to keep it secret, and it's never in favor of the players to do so, which is interesting. And why not tell the public? But if it's about OWGR in whole or in part, then my next question, is there a riff between PGA Tour and the majors. The PGA Tour is a party to this agreement, NUCO, and the majors are not. Okay, obvious. DP World Tour, Euro Tour is a party to this agreement with NUCO, and the majors are not. So the R&A and the Masters, USGA, and PGA of America, is there a riff in part? I doubt it would be a full riff, but is there a riff between half of the aristocracy and the other half? Maybe.
Absolutely.
Maybe the guys running the PGA Tour, Ed and his gang at Seminole, aren't so happy with some of the guys that made the OWGR decision, like at the R&A, Martin Slumbers. Maybe there's not so happy phone calls there. Like, what are you doing? We're supposed to be getting points for the LIV guys as part of our deal with NUCO, which is worth $2 billion. Let's just pick on Martin to have a name. I don't know that it's him, but Slumbers at the R&A. Martin, it's $2 billion, Martin. Yes, and I was expecting a phone call, Ed, back a few weeks ago when we were contemplating this decision. I thought that my bankers in Switzerland might be receiving something. I don't remember getting that phone call, Ed. Is that going on?
Sure, there's a lot of egos involved. And then you throw Tiger in the mix, and the biggest ego of them all is now showing up creating other problems.
Well, that's a whole nother angle. We got to go there. We can go there now if you want. But so you're saying that the riff is possible. Well, the players is a whole different. PGA Tour might be having problems.
It's not that a riff is possible. It's not that a riff is possible. There are certain people in the room who have an agenda and are holding things up. There's no question.
Well, don't expand it. Let's not go that riff. I'm talking specifically a riff between PGA Tour leadership and the majors. That the golf aristocracy, not the aristocracy versus the peasants. And Tiger's on the borderline of that. He is considered a peasant by the aristocracy. Well, Tiger, however, considers himself part of the aristocracy, but they don't. Maybe a couple of them do. That's
a big point. Yes.
Yeah, the kings and queens of the world don't look at the knights as anything more than fancy gladiators, and Tiger's the best of those. But the knights are still expendable in battle.
Right. To put that in perspective, as we had talked about, Tiger in his presser kept talking about how, the players don't have a say yet.
Which makes my ninth point, valid, right? Yeah. He wasn't invited to the party to help. He was kept in the dark like every other peasant, like us, like the players, like the fans, like everybody else. The aristocracy itself was negotiating with the enemy to make this happen. So we all know where we stand. There's no debating that, really.
Right. So is there a riff? When you frame it in that perspective between the PGA Tour and the majors, sure there is, because the OWGR just thumbed its nose at everyone.
Unless that was a ploy. You could conspiracy this thing forever. I mean, or was that just a negotiating chip? That the PGA Tour aristocracy, the guys there said, "Hey, don't to give them the points yet. We have to." There's a sticking point in the negotiations that the PIF's not agreeing to. So take away OWGR points right now, and then we'll get our thing. We want the color of the couches at new headquarters to be blue, and they don't. Whatever that sticking point was, OWGR being taken away, we took it away. What was that's from margin call, right? Take it away, take my hand off the scale, put my hands on the scale. Yeah, take it away, and we can put it back. But you have to agree to that thing first, that sticking point. And is that going on? Yeah, sure, that could also be going on. And then the aristocracy is still functioning as one unit. Now, let's just go ahead and put that right there. And we have to, unfortunately, we could probably talk about that for an hour and a half, just the aristocracy piece. But if the aristocracy is functioning as one unit, then this is nothing more than a negotiating point or a ploy to get PIF to agree to something that they want in the NUCO deal. True?
Yeah. So the alternative, of course, is somebody.
What's more likely? Let's leave it there. Yeah. Is it more likely that the aristocracy is of one mind, or is it more likely that there's a split of some kind, that they don't agree on everything? With this OWGR points thing.
To frame it in this context, they're all of one mind, and they're certainly saying, hey, we're not going to give them points. They'll get the points when the deal's finally done and Yasser shows up with a check.
We'll revisit the points. It's then.
Yeah.
reopen the application after the deal is done. Well, then why announce it beforehand? You could have left it alone and not said anything.
Well, there's so many rumors out there. We've discussed it. We have a list.
Well, but they did not give the point. They announced it. That's no.
Well, and they announced it for that specific reason. It is a negotiating chip with all these other situations.
And then your answer is that the aristocracy is still, there is no riff. It's functioning. We did it on purpose. The PGA Tour wanted us to withhold points. It wasn't.
Ed is a great negotiator. It's like, well,
Probably.
make an announcement.
That's likely.
Because let's be honest, the majors are all done. The FedEx Cup's done. These minor events, it's kind of an irrelevant announcement. The season doesn't really start again until January. So we make this announcement as a bargaining chip, and they have to come with a little bit more.
Right. Moving back along. Let's go to the other riff while we're there, and that is that the players led by Tiger are holding up a deal. Now, this isn't John particular, but we're here now, so let's just get that riff out of the way. That Tiger's leading a little bit of a revolt from the players' point of view that's slowing the deal down. It's slowing the finality of the deal down. And let's tie it to John. John is seeing that going, don't like that. I'm going to jump ship now. I'm going to go to LIV now because I am not supporting the players holding up the deal. Does that seem plausible? Part A, is it plausible that Tiger is holding up the deal, or that the players on the policy board led by Tiger are throwing some speed bumps in the way? It's certainly possible. Is it likely?
Oh, they definitely brought Tiger on to put speed bumps in the road without question. I mean, why else would they do that?
Get the points that we want. We're negotiating. We need to make sure that you guys are not throwing us under the bus here. We're going to do a deal. We want to make sure that we're being served by the deal, the players, that is. And Tiger and the guys will do that. Spieth now on the board too.
Right. Throughout Tiger's career, did anybody ever talk about Tiger leading the band of merry men? No, Tiger was always his own island.
Yeah, I would not choose him to lead the thing, but they think that he's a guy that can actually get it done. Like, well, you can't trust him, but his needs are now aligned with ours. The enemy, my enemy, is my friend. And Spieth is now there to keep an eye on him. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, like I said, that was my point the other day.
It was a good point.
Spieth really is there. Ed probably, I would say it was probably Jimmy who has a better relationship with the players. Jimmy called up Spieth and said, Jordan, you're going to be on the board for just a really short period of time while these negotiatings are there. And he's like, what? Are you kidding? Jordan, do I have to tell you the reason? And he's like, oh, God. Okay. All right. And you know what? I'm going to show up to his tournament too to start working on him.
Yeah. Well, I got to get to know him better.
Yeah.
Who says that Jordan Spieth and Tiger Woods are close? That they know each other?
They haven't spent any time.
I don't think they spend any time together
at all.
Exactly right. I don't know Tiger, as Jack Nicklaus famously said. I don't know Tiger. I see him once in a while, once a year. It's my tournament.
Sure.
It's not like we're going to get a beer every week. Yeah, and what better place to get to know somebody than 5 days in a beautiful Bahamas resort in Albany?
Right.
Perfect.
5 days, you're isolated. There's nobody at the event.
And Tiger could throw out the red carpet. Bring the family, bring the kids, certainly bring Annie, the whole gang, the infant. It'll be great. We got, it's right here. It takes you 2 seconds to get here. The Spieths are in Texas.
Jordan,
so what's that? 2.5 hour
before you
flight.
leave Monday, we'll take the yacht out. The kids can go jump in the water or whatever, and we'll talk a little bit.
Yeah, my daughter loves babies. She'd love to see them. Are Tiger's kids there in Albany?
I have not. I doubt it. They got to be in school.
Where's the girl? I never see the girl very often. But whatever, it doesn't matter.
Know.
Anyway, so Spieth's there to keep an eye on Tiger. So I think that's plausible that the deal has got some humps from the PGA Tour. So there is a rift between tour leadership and the players, the certain players represented by Tiger, and maybe it's a majority of the players who just don't trust the PGA Tour leadership. Well, how could they possibly not trust them? Yeah, of course they don't trust them. So maybe that's all legit. But do they also trust Tiger fully? No, if you're smart, you don't, because he's thinking about himself, not you. But again, his needs are aligned with yours at the moment. So let's make that happen. Send Spieth. We all trust him. That's probably true too. and they'll balance it out, and we'll have real representation there. Because you can't trust that Malnati guy probably either. Hoffman, right. I don't know. Cantlay probably trust.
And the second reason to have Spieth there is because when Spieth comes out on January 1st and goes to the players and says, "Hey guys, this is the best we could do for everybody," they're going to believe him. If Tiger said that, they'd be like, "Yeah, whatever, Tiger."
There's probably that's funny you say that. There's probably a lot of parallels here with any big deal like this, where there's a lot of different interests to serve, but there is an overarching benefit for everybody. That's the negotiations for the United States of America's Constitution. It was a real long haul to get that done. Yeah. And the parallels are fascinating. Everybody had something, those states all had something different they wanted, and not to give up certain other things. And yeah, amazing. Great story for those of you interested in reading a great negotiation. Amazing players there, amazing characters.
What I would see on whatever January 2nd or 5th or whatever is Jay, Tiger, and Jordan sitting there, and Jordan saying essentially between the lines, "Guys, this is the best we could do." Tiger going, "I'm going to be there for you guys." He's got the pom-poms on, and Jay's going to go, "I have done all I can, and I have my flu-like symptoms again, and I am taking now an advisory role at the PGA headquarters and will no longer be president." That's the press conference, if anybody's interested.
To paraphrase Ben Franklin, it's like, this is the best we can. Is it the best we can do, gentlemen? I don't know that, but it is what we can do. Yes. And don't let the enemy, the enemy of good be perfect. It's not perfect. But we all need to cast our fate into NewCo, and that's what we're saying we need, because at the end of the day, we on the PGA Tour need money. The PIF wants the deal for their own reasons. They're willing to put in the amount of money that makes it all work, and we get to all go forward, and that's where we're at. So we can't walk away at this point. And if we did, they would take a few more players, and then it would be over. They'd have too many guys, and then we'd have a riff in the game, which serves nobody. Doesn't serve them, doesn't serve us. But PIF is willing to do it. And that's probably never been taken off the table by the PIF. Like, look, we'll love to do a deal, but if you can't do a deal, then we'll keep doing what we're doing. And they smile.
And by the way, and so, like I said, we mentioned the OWGR points and Rahm going there. So this is probably NewCo or Yasser going, "Well, if you're not going to give us points, guess what? We're going to take Rahm, and we can go tit for tat all day. I can take a player, you can take stuff away from us."
Let's go there. So, in the interest of time, so John's going to LIV. Everything we just talked about, there is a deal. So is he really leaving? Blah blah blah. No, he's not really leaving, because there's a deal and there's NewCo, and he's working for NewCo just like everybody else. And that's fascinating about how they're going to actually structure NewCo into leagues or not leagues or signature events that are all combined. The LIV will be the 8 signature events, and the majors are the majors, or the players is one of that. That's a whole. Maybe we'll get to that today. Probably not. Let's pivot to John's going to LIV, and there is no deal. That's a whole different world. And I know our friends on X are busy saying, this gets the deal done. It's a point of leverage. It's what Darkstar just said. They're pulling Ron over there because it gets the deal done. It forces the PGA Tour to accept the deal. That would be bad faith. That's draconian in its tactics to force a joint venture to happen. A lot of bad feelings. That's a whole different conversation. But let's just say that John's going to LIV, and there's no deal going to happen by design. PIF no longer wants a deal, and taking John right now and announcing it would be a great way of killing it. Like, yes, we're done. Screw you guys. We don't like what you're asking us to do. We're not going to give you $2 billion and sign away all control. It's not happening. And we're just going to, Ron, we've been talking to John. He's finally said, yeah. And we're going to strike while the iron's hot. He's going to sign, and we're moving on. No deal. Or that could be one reason there'd be no deal. Or the PGA Tour can't sign it because the players are saying they don't want to, and we just can't get over that fact. They're going to have a vote, We are changing the bylaws, and they're going to have an equal say-so or actually control over the vote, and they ain't going to vote for it. So deal ain't going to happen. So there's no deal, and John goes to LIV. Is that plausible, and what does that look like, Dark Star, in your mind?
Well, I think that's still very plausible. If I'm Jon Rahm, I've won 2 majors. I have 5 years in the majors. Now, here's the other thing. The DP Tour, which Jon Rahm is potentially leaving to support the DP Tour because LIV wants to be the World Golf Tour. You see these guys are playing in Australia. They're going to pick up some points. He's got majors to play in. He's got points. The deal, the no deal really just hurts the Taylor Gooches of LIV. And so, yeah, I could see John going, well, you know what? I just want to play in a few events. I want to play with my buddies, Phil and Sergio. I want to have a team against Sergio. I would see something along the lines of he joins the Fireballs for, the 2024 season, and then he gets his own team. And I see LIV teams expanding from 12 to 15 because that makes the numbers work for the shotgun starts and the 4-man teams, etc. So sure, there's a lot of ways that works also. And then you open up 2 more teams. That gives them the ability to poach some other players from the PGA Tour. I don't know. I don't mind that. I want to see my favorite players playing when I sit down to watch a golf event.
That's all? Yes, that's possible. Is it logical?
It's not as logical as a deal being done.
Well, does not having a deal, audience and Dark Star, does not having a deal lead? I'm writing it down. Lead to Piff's dream and Greg's dream. Really, does it lead to the dream of 48 guys or 54 guys or whatever the number is eventually? 48 guys. We'll just use that. The 48 best players in the world right this minute. Literally the 48 best players playing in a series of tournaments, be that 6 or 8. It's probably about all you have room for in a schedule. 8, let's say. That would be the max, I think. 8 times a year, the top 48 guys go at it for big money. Okay, that's the dream of the World Golf League or the LIV. It's the dream. And we want that dream to come true. So do the players. And does not having a deal with PGA Tour get you closer to that dream, have no effect, or move you farther from that dream, further from that dream? I ask you.
Well, it certainly gets you further from the dream at this stage. But maybe ultimately this sacrifice 10 years from now gets a LIV league that is just your top 50 players, which is what people really want.
If you have 2 big tours, can you have the 48 guys together except at the majors, which neither tour, let me point out again, the obvious, to myself. And if you have 2 tours that are balanced, but they're not together, so they don't play each other, except where?
At the majors.
Where you don't own how much?
Any.
0.
Zilch. Not a
0. You are a feeder. All your money, time, effort, and energy. You are feeding your superstars to them. And you don't own it. Can you imagine? World where that's how sports would operate.
Why was this announcement made in June? Because the PGA Tour realizes they can't survive in the golf ecosystem on their own. There's no way.
Well, it's a fine ecosystem when the aristocracy's all one big happy family. The majors own the PGA Tour in a sense because the aristocracy is all one big happy family. They're happy to have it that way because they make their money, leeching off the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour does its thing. The players all play there, and they all go to the majors, and it's all great. And that's working just fine. We don't need to change it. Then you have disruptor. The PIF comes in as a major disruptor, led by Greg and Phil, really, who are having none of that. They're like, yeah, that's a BS model. I see how it works for you, aristocracy, but it's not working for the players. And that's got to stop. And the PIF has an interest here that we can band together and change it. We can change forever this aristocracy hold on pro golf, and that's what we're going to do. And that's why the deal is being forced upon the PGA Tour. Now, does the aristocracy like that? No, I don't think they do. But are they for sale? I mean, there's really no other way to put it.
Well, they
Yeah,
have to be.
if they might be for sale if there's no other path forward. If they see that the tour is going to be wrecked and the PIF's willing to wreck it, then yeah. And that's where we are. Okay, that's June. That's last June. That's where everybody was, and that's what they talked about in London and then again in Venice. And that's why we have a deal, because wow, it does not serve PIF to have a wrecked golf ecosystem. I have to remind everyone that in my view, right or wrong, the PIF's interest here is not to make a couple of nickels on a profitable LIV Golf League 5-10 years from now. If that's how long it took to get profitable, after investing billions of dollars in it, they get a return of a couple $100 million a year. That is not what they're interested in. How could they be? That's not worth it. It's not interesting. A couple $100 million is zippity doo-dah. Nothing to these guys. They have too much of a stack. They need way more than that. They need billions and billions of dollars of return on their investments, not little nickels. So destroying golf as it exists doesn't help them. It doesn't move them towards where they want to be. So I can't imagine they would do anything to destroy the game. They don't want to do that. They want to do the opposite. They want to enhance the game. They want it to be bigger and better. And they need the PGA Tour as a viable entity in America to help that, to make golf better. They can't start with a destroyed PGA Tour and rebuild it and start all over. It would take too long. It would take longer than not doing it that way, which is why there's a deal. So
I
operating,
agree, but if you have people that are going to destroy it, if you have people that are going to throw themselves on their sword and destroy the PGA Tour and try to keep some kind of model like this, they can't be part of that.
Right. I think the PIF would. Well, in the no deal world, I don't want to get too far off, but in the no deal world, John goes to LIV. There is no deal. He plays at LIV. He's exempt to the majors, so he himself is fine. He's got to win again, or he runs out of exemptions in 5 years, and that's not automatic. He's putting a lot more pressure on himself. If winning majors is his number one goal in his professional life, which I think it is, he said it is. Makes sense. The player of that caliber, that's what he'd be thinking about. Brooks Koepka thinks about that. They all do. Grand Slam, join history, be a legend. There's only 5 of those people in the history of golf, professional golf. In 5 years, if I haven't won again, I got a problem. If LIV stays over there and nothing happens. Right. So that's got to be on his mind. It's not nothing. But
let's put it like this. 5 years from now, the PGA Tour having 36 hit and giggles that nobody's going to care about cannot survive. They're not. True, they don't have any revenue.
But then you're saying that LIV would,
and LIV then goes directly to the majors.
Well, but LIV would have poached all the players. If you're saying the PGA Tour is so diminished, then LIV would have poached all the players.
It's getting to that point where it's so diminished right now, and you're going to have 36 events that lose money because nobody's going to watch them. TV audience is deteriorating as we speak. And it gives the if there's no deal, what does LIV do? They go directly to the majors.
Well, in that scenario, I would say you're not wrong, but I think you're missing the other half of that equation, which is...
I'm oversimplifying.
No, I don't think that. No, I don't think that. But the PGA Tour is struggling. That's why they need money. Why are they struggling? Golf is diminishing in players. There's fewer and fewer young people playing golf in the Gulf countries. Period. End of story. There's way many other things to do for them. And that's just a fact. So the audience is aging and all those things we've said a zillion times. So in a world where the PGA Tour is diminished and faltering and falling apart over the next 5 to 10 years, John's over at LIV, Spieth goes to LIV, JT goes to LIV, they all go to the remaining tour that has money, that doesn't fix golf. LIV doesn't succeed there either. If golf is failing, it fails for everybody. Boom. And how do you fix it is no simple task. NUCO has no simple task ahead of it. Just because they're getting everybody together in one tent doesn't mean it's going to be simple and easy. Yes, they have unlimited money, essentially, for this little effort of golf. Golf's not that expensive compared to the other things that you could spend money on if you're PIF. But they still have to figure out a way to get kids around the world to play and make it a bigger sport. It ain't soccer. It's nowhere close. It's not Formula One, where you don't really need to go out and race your own car to be a fan. Golf requires you to play golf to be a fan. Soccer does too. All the sports do. If you're going to have a rabid fan base, they need to have played the game as a kid, at least, if not even along the way as a teenager and then into their early adulthood. More people playing, bigger fan base, more excitement. You can go pick up a basketball and pretend to be good. You can kick a soccer ball and pretend to be Messi. You can hit a golf ball and pretend to be Tiger Woods. Critical that you do that. If kids don't care about doing that, then there is no nothing. So hence the deal. So in a no deal world, Jon goes over to LIV, and it's temporarily a spectacular win, and it would be. No doubt of that. But what does it really mean long term? And I'll pivot back to PIF. Do they really think that they can build a healthy golf ecosystem that benefits them without the PGA Tour anywhere near within the 2030 vision plan that they have, Vision 2030, that they're working off of? That's only 6 years away. I don't think so, which feeds into why would they want Jon over there in a no-deal world? Good question. And is that answerable, Dark Star? Is there a logical answer to that question? Why does PIF want to pay Rahm to go to LIV if they're not getting a deal?
Yeah, the only
I've left you speechless. I have left you speechless.
Yeah. I really had to take pause there. The only explanation is if they take Rahm and there's no deal, they have to go there, and they want a golf ecosystem for their needs. They need to go scorched earth and try to destroy the PGA Tour quickly. They need to shower Rory. They need to shower the top players with money. Spieth and Rory obviously would destroy. If Spieth and Rory left, the PGA Tour would be done. Okay.
I would even argue if they got Spieth and JT or Spieth and Scheffler. If they get Spieth and Rahm, the game's up. But what do they have? They still only have. Well,
they go scorched earth, and the PGA Tour is, going to kind of be done. They go scorched earth. They take a few more players. Then they negotiate, as I said, directly with the major. You might have something there in a couple years. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and where's Jordan on his exemptions? What's his last major win?
Who's that? Spieth?
The Open, right? Open Championship.
Yeah, the Open in 2017. So he's out of those type majors. He's relying mostly at the Masters. He gets obviously.
Yeah, he can. He can play the Masters.
I think the U.S. Open is.
I
think the U.S. Open is 10 years though when you've won it, isn't it?
The PGA Championship apparently is a lifetime exemption.
Masters and PGA are lifetime, and I thought the Open is lifetime until 60.
Till you're 60 years old. So the U.S. Open is his only problem.
The U.S. Open
and the
is his
PGA
only problem, but I think he gets 10 years, so he would get till 2027, I believe, with the U.S. Open.
I don't know that. Is that?
So
you get something.
So Spieth would get to play in all three. Spieth would play in the three majors at least until 2027. And then he get to play,
but he's not exempt. Let's put it that way. He doesn't get to. Well, he has to. He's not exempt into the one that he needs. So that's all he cares about, particularly. I can't play in the PGA Championship right now without points, without OWGR points.
Right.
I think is the bottom line. Maybe he gets invited once or twice. It's not a done deal though for him. So for him going to LIV would be problematic, very problematic. I can't imagine there's anything more important to him than winning the Grand Slam. Can't imagine that.
Correct.
But
he still would get to play in some majors and some, like I said, those Australian events. He'd still be able to get some points.
Well, it's not a show about Spieth going there, but I mean, that's another stretch. All right. Well, we are deep into this program with a time point of view, and we've set it up in a certain way with deal, no deal. There's a whole lot of other little tidbits here. Do we want to explore those for a quick second or not? I have to check the time here. We're about 40 minutes in, give or take. Do we want to go with the smoke signals? Because there are some. Let's touch on those real quick, and then we'll wrap it up for today. We're going to go over to the podcast and give our deeper analysis as to what we think is going on here with these rumors of Jon Rahm going to LIV. But John pulled out of the Tiger Golf League. Okay, recently. That was where these rumors sort of started to swirl. Then he, I guess, pulled out of the Hero, or did he never commit to the Hero? Do you have that fact on your radar screen, Darkstar?
I don't have the fact, but the bottom line is Tiger starts at who's number one in the world and invites people down the line. So he was clearly invited.
He absolutely wants John to be there, and he's not there. So he's not at the Hero, which is happening right as we speak. He's not in the TGL anymore. So those are two pretty big swirling signals that maybe something is off in John world. Now, it could just as easily not mean that at all. I have an infinite home. What are you kidding?
Yeah.
I won an off season, and I told Kelly back all summer long when I was busy that I was going to be home all the way through Christmas.
Right.
So that's what I'm doing. Period. And
he might be just sitting back on his couch laughing at the social media.
He might be. Another signal, if you're going to make this argument, he hasn't come out and said anything. He doesn't have to. He could send his team out. He could issue a press release. He could say something on X. These rumors are unfounded. I am not going to LIV. He could do that. To my knowledge, I haven't looked in the last 10 seconds, but I have not seen that. And Darkstar has not seen that. So he hasn't put the rumors to bed. Phil Mickelson gave a definitive answer a week ago and said, Shipnuck, you're a liar. And I never said that John coming to LIV was a done deal. I don't know any. Now, and there was part two of that answer. I don't know anything, and I don't want to know anything. Well, that leaves the door wide open if you're a conspiracy theorist, and who doesn't love a good conspiracy? So Phil didn't exactly say it was never going to happen or couldn't possibly happen. He did say what he said, and Shipnuck was reporting that Rahm was going, and that was the whole point of it. Well, he wasn't reporting that. Shipnuck was reporting that Phil was saying that. And then we have all these anonymous sources, players, unnamed players, whoever they might be, who would know John's mind, who John would have told, or who would have heard through their agents or through a caddy or through some crack in the, which is, you have to suspend belief a little bit to even believe that it would be disseminated like that. It's a pretty personal, private negotiation. They could easily have that in secret.
And that also tells me that's one of the problems with the whole. Jordan did come out and say he wants to get rid of the PIP money because you're going to have guys just jumping on the bandwagon saying whatever to get social media points, which I think is ridiculous.
And then we've seen another smoke signal would be that John's still upset that he was bounced out of the Memorial Tournament in June of 2021 for testing positive for COVID. And he's angry with the PGA Tour for that. Was he unhappy?
Well,
sure, he was unhappy. Did he hold a grudge? I don't know about that.
I think he wants to support the European Tour.
Well, we haven't gotten there yet. Do you think there's any validity to the fact that he actually is holding a grudge for the last 2 years about being plucked out of winning the Memorial? He was going into the final round with a 5-shot lead or 6, 5, something like that. He had commanding performance, and they pull him out of there.
It would have to be more than just being pulled out of the Memorial. You know, it's kind of like when we had talked about why DJ was a no-brainer to go to LIV, because it wasn't just what they did to him on the course.
He had no end. He was done with the PGA
course.
Tour. Dustin Johnson had no use for the PGA Tour anymore. Right. I have another opportunity to go play in a similar golf league that looks the same. Those are important points. We won't make them today. But it looks the same. It's all these great golf courses, beautiful, all that stuff. I'm going to play against other good players to be named later. It's going to get better every year. Great, I'm in. And you're going to pay me more than I was going to make over here. Great, I'm in because I hate those guys. I don't like the aristocracy, and they don't really like me. I'm useful, but I'm smart enough to know that they see me as a useful guy, and that's it. Not anything more than that. So I'm out of here. So yeah, he had reasons. All right, go. I don't think John has a grudge from the Memorial. I don't. He's won the U.S. Open since then. He's moved on. Even if he had a grudge for a minute, I'm bigger than that. I'm Jon Rahm. I don't bother myself, and he probably doesn't. That's cluttered thinking. You don't want to be. If you want to be firing on all cylinders, you don't want to have your brain cluttered with that kind of nonsense. Move on. I can't fix it. I can't change it. I got to go win the next tournament. I want to win majors. Destruction of the Euro Tour. Smoke signal. John, he hasn't been bombastic about that, but I think we could say that he's unhappy or disappointed, maybe is a better word, that the PGA Tour has not been kind to the European Tour. Is that a fair way to put it?
Absolutely. He said some things between the lines. He doesn't have the personality to come out and say to the PGA Tour, yeah, I'm mad at you. You're screwing over the DP Tour. It's going to be a feeder tour. But he did pretty much come close to saying that.
Yeah.
So he does have a little grudge there.
Yeah, I could see that. Somebody could tell me, and he hasn't, but if somebody said, hey, you know what? Jon Rahm really is a believer in building the game in Spain. He's got a lot of loyalty there, family there, obviously. He's northern Spain. That's his territory, northeast Spain. And the European Tour is important to him for that reason. He wants to carry the legacy of Seve Ballesteros forward and Olazabal to a lesser extent. And that's why he's, I'd say friends with Sergio. I don't know about buddies, but maybe they're buddies. I don't know if they're buddies, but they're friends. They have a common belief, which is Spanish golf, and Spain being a big chunk of the European golf, experience at the pro level. And that's all being wiped away by what the PGA Tour is up to. And the PIF wants to restore that, potentially with Newco buying both to having a joint venture where they're funding it with the DP, with the Euros and the PGA Tour, both. Let's not forget the European Tours in this deal. Now, here we are in a perfect place maybe to pivot, and then we got to go, actually, unfortunately. We're going to have to continue this conversation on the podcast, and we're going to do that. So what I just said, I think is true. If there's no deal and John goes to LIV, how is he helping the European Tour? Because there's no deal now. Though there is no Newco, there is no European Tour joining Newco. European Tour is left to be a feeder tour for the PGA Tour, which is what it is now. So him going to LIV, no deal. How's that help Europe?
So from an OWGR standpoint, the DP Tour gave exemptions to these Australian events. It's going to make more of that possible, more of those type scenarios possible. And maybe the DP Tour gets kind of fed up a little bit too with the PGA Tour and starts making some noise and creating more avenues for LIV guys to play in these DP events.
You're saying then that John going to LIV in a no-deal world creates opportunity for European Tour?
Creates opportunity for LIV and the DP Tour to have a little bit more of a friendlier relationship.
But the DP Tour is beholden to the PGA Tour at that. But the PGA Tour owns how much? 40% of the.
Yeah.
So the DP Tour is a feeder tour for the PGA Tour. You're saying that John at LIV and there's no Newco, that somehow the PGA Tour is gonna let the DP World Tour operate differently with respect to LIV. There's no deal.
They're doing it right now.
You guys aren't going to cozy up to LIV in the future.
They're doing it right now as we speak. As we speak in Australia, they gave exemptions for Cam Smith and Leishman and all those guys to play in Australia. Those are DP events.
They're co-sanctioned by the DP World Tour. They're Australian events.
Right.
But I'm not sure that DP needed to sign off there. I think that the Australian tournament organizers have slots.
Mentioning things for argument. How he's going to strengthen the DP Tour.
I don't think that audience might have more. Audience in Australia for certainly would know more about that. I think the Australian tournament organizers have slots for a certain number of players. They don't need the DP to give that. Okay. They don't have to ask permission for that. So I don't know that that's true. But I don't see, to put it, let's just skip ahead. I don't see how John in a no-deal world helps Europe Tour. And if that's one of his goals, among others, he's not helping that. So you could still say,
how about opening up the Ryder Cup? They're going to have to put him on the Ryder Cup. I think they're going to keep him off the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, you could say that in a no deal world, Jon Rahm to LIV is a blow for the OWGR, not giving LIV points. It helps LIV's argument for points, and it helps LIV's argument for slots or a pathway to Ryder Cup. But didn't we already answer that question? The Americans had Koepka on the team.
Yeah,
we already have a pathway for that. I mean, Jon Rahm is gonna play in the Ryder Cup regardless. In fact, they asked Tiger that down at the Hero. Hey, what about the Ryder Cup? And what about this? What about that? You being captain, Luke Donald's already been named, and what do you think? And I can't remember if you watched that again. I've watched it a couple times. You think you watched it more than me. Was there something else about the deal in the Ryder Cup? But you chime in with that. But well, give me a yes or no. Was there anything specific? Because then I want to make a point of why I brought that up.
No, I don't recall anything specific.
What did Tiger say about the Ryder Cup? He said, I don't want to talk about it. The Ryder Cup conversation is irrelevant right now. It is so not important to talk about that. It's far away, and I don't care. Now, he said it a lot nicer than that, but he really didn't want to go there.
And all the players in the U.S. and Tiger all putting the Ryder Cup on the back burner because they got throttled in something they were a favorite in.
Well, he didn't want to talk about the tone that what I took away from that comment was that's not important. What's important is this deal, whether and how it gets done, and really not whether. We haven't talked about Tiger. Let's bring him in now, and then we got to punch off because we're gonna run out of time with our audience on YouTube, and we'll get over to the podcast. The Tiger, what he said at the Hero, said in many different ways that there's a deal, many different ways that he was. It wasn't if, it was more how. Not if it's going to get done, but how is it going to get done? And he said at, 14 different ways. Are you going to have extra investors besides PIF? Or is it just going to be PIF? Is it going to all these done deal type of questions that he answered in the context of we're doing a deal. Yes, we're doing a deal, but how it gets done. And we have, we as the players now can approve, not approve different elements of it, and it's all being negotiated. And whether we have other investors, and all that happy talk. Yes. So it all said there's a deal. So the deal, no deal, Jon going to LIV, you can assume that there's a deal and that Jon is going to live within the deal, assuming that Jon's going to live. Is that fair, Darkstar?
Yeah. And Tiger basically between the lines said there's a deal and Jay's gone. Simplified.
Yeah, it was his first comment about Jay was funny. He was there when it all went off track. He knew everything and blah blah blah. He got us to that point. Which is never you want to hear that. Like, well, tell us about your opinion of Jay. Well, he got us to this point. That is not the answer you want from your boss.
Meaning, he got us here and he has no future.
Correct.
Going forward.
We have no need for him going forward, but he did get us to where we are. Later on in the press conference, he said something nicer about Jay, like, Jay's whatever, going to be here tomorrow. Now, maybe that was cover. Maybe he realized he answered the first question a little too pointedly, possibly. I don't know. But that first answer was not, my ears went right straight up because I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Well, he did a great job getting us this far. Oh, shit. I'm fired. I mean, there's no other way to take that. And the smart, savvy executive's like, oh, you're going to pay me for 6 months to go look for a job, aren't you? Yes, that's what we're doing. You have 6 months. We'll pay you during that time. It'll look like you're employed here, but be looking for a job. All right. That's what that means in the boardroom. So yeah, we'll see. It's a wild rumor. It's a wild story. Wild numbers being bantied about. Let's remind everybody as my parting shot for today's YouTube show. The PIF spent about $1 billion US on soccer stars recently in the last run. They've been assembling guys to get to the Saudi League, and they got Neymar and Ronaldo and a bunch of guys, a whole bunch, for $1 billion. And these are the Jon Rahms of soccer, for sure. And then the numbers you see floating around are like, well, 600 million for Rahm. I'm like, huh? The greatest soccer players in the world in a much bigger sport, much bigger deal to Saudi.
Right.
Then they're the money they're spending more money on golf per capita than they did in soccer. Huh? I'm not sure I follow that. I don't follow that. But is anything possible? Sure. But is it logical? That's a very different question, and one that we like to use as our litmus test, I think, here. I'm going to punch off with that comment. But what else do you want to say about this?
Well, is that logical? It's only logical if they feel the U.S. market and PGA Tour golf, giving them the access, is worth significantly more than signing soccer players in the largest sport ecosystem in the world. So, I wouldn't know those numbers.
We'll never know the numbers. So, if John goes there, I guess you could claim victory if you had thrown out $300, $400, $500, $600 million. You could always say that that's true. Well, nobody will ever know. So it's never going to be a known fact. So say whatever you want, but logical, especially if there's a deal. If there's a deal in place, then spending a whole bunch of money on John right now doesn't make sense.
So I'll just say this: my parting comment to the YouTube audience, obviously, is I just really want to see the best players play against each other on real golf courses where they're shooting around par 6 to 10 times a year. Give me just 6 to 10 times a year, please.
I think that's 12 would be the right number.
12. I'm not even that greedy.
4 majors and 8 big time events for NewCo events. 8 of those. I just want to see the best players playing more than just at the majors. Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. Well, for now, B team is out.
Dr. Darkstar's out.
If you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe to our new audio podcast. That is where you will get all of our show prep material, wide-ranging conversation, as well as topics that'll never get to YouTube. And there are a lot of those that we like to talk about that'll never make it to YouTube. So look in the description below for the link over to Substack. That's where you can subscribe to the podcast. And thank you again for being a fan.